Hey everyone, welcome back to the Virtuals podcast. This is your host, Saara, and I've got another episode for you. Today's guest is Dr. Lisa Viapiano, who is a friend who is so mystical, so magical, and knows her ish from having lived so many lives in her lifetime. I had such a fun time talking with Lisa about her journey and about topics that we both percolate on that I'm sure many of you percolate on, such as surrender and trust and divine timing and connecting to our intuition and trusting our intuition and trusting these crazy magical experiences that happen in our lives. And I am just really excited to bring you guys this conversation. Something I wanted to share in this intro is that the podcast is in yet another transition. And this is the first episode that I'm recording that's like not necessarily in the new format that I'm working through or discovering, but that I tried not to be as much of an interviewer in. And the reason I share these little updates on the intros with you guys rather than just implementing them is because I, for one, feel like there are some consistent listeners and I want you guys to have like the updates. And the second thing is that I think one day, wherever this podcast ends up, one day, if somebody were to listen to these different, like, quote unquote, seasons of the show, so I don't really do seasons with it, but I look back, I can see that now there are these seasons of the show, to the first 11 episodes I did solo, to this next, I think 12, 13, 14 that have been guest episodes in an interview format, to now what is developing that I don't really have clarity on yet that I'm working through though, is they are distinctly different. And I think it's cool to notice that because that is what creating is, or at least has been in my experience, and that I've heard from many people in my life who have made things over years of work and also refinement and also intuitive guidance. So that's the update. The pod is in this transition. It's going to be awesome. I have no idea what it's going to be yet. And I'm a little bit nervous. I'm a little bit frustrated because I'm like, damn, I've been pouring into the podcast in a certain way and I want to sustain that. And, but I can't sustain it. Like my energy doesn't want to be directed in the way that I've been directing it on the show. And it wants to be expressed in a different way. And now I'm in this process of, again, discovering like, okay, what is this way that it wants to be expressed? So such is, I guess, the creative process and being a creative. And if you are, I'm sure many of you are creating your own things, whether I have no idea what you're creating. I would actually love to know. So if you want to leave me a comment and tell me. But I know many of you are going to be creating and working on your own things, your own creations. And just let this be an example. I hope this is an example of just the licensing that you get to have with allowing the thing that you're creating to develop with time, experience, reps, and for you as a creator of said thing to also develop in your relation to that thing. And again, I'm probably going to have more things to say on this in the future that I think could be helpful, as maybe a solo episode or maybe a conversation with a friend about this process of making this podcast. I think that could be fun, but for now, I'll just leave you with that permission. Not that you needed it, but just it can be helpful to like hear that every now and then. I'm going to leave you with that permission, and I'm going to send you into this conversation with Lisa. I hope you enjoy, and I'll see you very soon. That was like the whole intent. And then what was coming up was like, firstly, open your heart. Secondly, the podcast. And I'm like, and then I was like, no, not the podcast.
It's always that thing that we are like, just let it not be this. It's usually that.
It's just like, it doesn't feel like easy. It does feel easy when I find the flow, but it's just like goes through so much evolution in its process. Like I've been making this for almost a year and it's like, whoa, here we are with another evolution after only 11 guest episodes, or like 12 or 13, whatever. But like after a handful of guest episodes, it's like ready for a new life. So
it's really just a testament to you that you got started before you had it all like figured out. So of course,
yeah,
that's what my work has been, like constant reiterations. Like, oh, actually I did that last week. I'm not gonna do that this week. I don't know.
Well, and you're a manifesting generator, right?
Yeah, to the T. And I am very much that. Like squirrel energy, like shiny things. Like, oh, I'm really excited about a lot of things, but sometimes my follow through isn't great. And it really helped me when I started like understanding that. It's like, oh, I don't need to like shame myself for like moving on from something really quickly, and I can tighten up my follow through.
And I feel like there's so much about surrender even in that, of being open to your creative impulses and yeah, just pulling the threads and then letting them close when it feels good. I want to get into that. Oh, I was thinking of that this morning while I was getting ready with the show, where I was like, wow, it's so weird. I have 11 episodes that are solos, totally different format. Then I have 11 guest episodes. Now I feel like it's going to be changing again. And I was thinking, isn't that nice that I actually will have that all out in public. So if people did go back and watch the trajectory, even if they just like go from like season one, I'm not doing seasons, but you could categorize them as such, that they would actually see a progression in how messy it has been and how nonlinear it has been. But you know, I'm still doing it because I think that's what creating is.
For sure. Like I look back, even just starting my YouTube channel, like I'm figuring out YouTube, and it's the first time I've done different types of videos, and I'm really happy about it. I love it. But especially doing my lives, because I was doing like those weekly like somatic movement lives, and then like, all right, hit live, and I'm like, I don't know what I'm doing today. I'm purposefully not really planning them because I'm just preparing myself to like strengthen my channel with that. But yeah, it's like the first couple, like I couldn't figure out how to, so it's like 5 minutes delayed of like my face and the camera like being live. And I'm like, who cares? People love that shit. Like, it's just like, oh, look how cute she is. She doesn't know what she's doing. I don't know what I'm doing either. And then you get to watch the whole evolution. And
Yeah.
yeah, I totally agree. I think it's really what people need. We're really like returning, to that level of like, you're not an expert at something when you start it. You're not supposed to be an expert at it. And that's makes you, it made me anyways. Like, I feel like because I was so into like pre-med and always like really smart and like doing the thing, and became a chiropractor like pretty young, and I like made myself have like an expert title, and I really stole a lot of time of just like me being in my creative flow and like having mentors and like being a real student. I like, even with my channel, like I was like, oh, my channel's open, let me create a business, instead of just being like, I don't know what I'm doing right now.
Which
And like,
channel? Your channel or your
my
YouTube
channel.
channel? Okay. Just to distinguish.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
like you're doing the podcast. It's like, oh, this is exciting. I know this is connected to my mission work. I know I should be doing this. But I really feel like I definitely held myself to like, well, I have this title, and so I need to be an expert, and so I can't not be like polished and perfect, which isn't my natural essence. So it took me a lot of time to like let me myself be like silly and like looser when I was, doing podcasts or like doing anything. And it's like,
Yeah.
yeah, that's, no one wants things that look like AI now because everything is AI now.
Yeah. Yeah, or even the perfection or the homogenized version of ourselves. Like that's kind of what I'm feeling with the show is I was bringing this energy from my consultant life of being buttoned up and like really professional and all that. And I can be professional, but I can also just be I can just be myself. What is professional anyway? I can just be myself in the context that where I land, and that is like appropriate. I don't know. There's probably deeper stuff around that, but there's definitely deeper stuff around that. But that's where I'm, especially even like leaving my corporate job and then like doing my own thing, is realizing how I've taken the mindsets and even habits around work and being into my life. And but when I was in the job, I was like, oh, it's the job I'm in government, so I have to be buttoned up and blah, 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 blah. And it supported that. And also like I created these constructs and they're now with me, and I'm now undoing them in these new contexts where it's not required.
I always say, like, I spent a lot of years and a lot of money building boxes for myself so that I could just like find my cute little way out of them. And that's been the last like decade of life.
When you say boxes, you mean all of your credentials. 'Cause you have a shit ton. I'm assuming is that what you mean, at least in part?
Yeah, that's I think the more surface layer is like, yeah, the credentials, and it's a lot of time, and it's a lot of money, and it is a lot of different aspects of self. You only know when you know. I didn't really understand when I started that journey that I was like trying to find myself and really take away the boxes that I had had up until that point that I thought were constricting. Like when I found, because I was pre-med, I was going to do anesthesiology or surgery. That's like, I was always really fascinated by the human body. And then I started interning and I realized like, I don't want to be in hospitals all day. This is actually really depressing. And I was so burnt out in undergrad that I started getting really bad migraines. And so someone was like, go to a chiropractor. I'd never been to a chiropractor before. And I went, and this guy was just like such a beautiful human. He made me feel so much better. So I started interning there, and like that's when everything like shifted from like a really young age. I was very connected to like, I'm here for a big reason. I don't know what it is, but like I used to tell my mom, like, Mom, like my mission is really big. Like I don't know. And I was like kind of crushed by the pressure of like, I remember laying in bed as a child being like, why am I here? and and really also connected to the idea of like finding my soul family and like knowing that there were people who were like my people that I would meet. And I was always really social. Like I had friends easy. That wasn't a problem for me, but I had really deep-seated like loneliness. No matter how many people I had around, I was just like, nobody really gets me. I don't know. I don't feel like at home here. And so that was like the first box of like, well, I'm going to put on the face of this like smart, happy child that I'm supposed to be. And then when I found chiropractic, I moved cross country by myself, from New York to California. And I was like, this is going to be it. These are going to be my people. I'm going to go to this place and I'm going to feel so at home. And it was so not that. And it was like kicked off my first like dark night of the soul, even though I didn't know that it was that at the time. And so, that journey of like, yeah, what we're all doing, like finding ourselves. And then we're like, oh, maybe this certification or like this thing. Like I was such a seeker of finding home somewhere. And that's a big part of why, my tagline is not really anymore, but for my business for so long, it was just like, come, like bringing people home to themselves and like come home to yourself. And because it took me relocating several times in my adulthood and like, leaving a life and starting a new one to finally be home in me. Yeah, the boxes and the titles are a really fascinating thing. And I don't regret any of it, Now it's like, oh, thank God, I have all of those tools.
So MG also, I'm just thinking of like you just have these things that seem like unrelated in a way, but they actually do come together in a unique way. And therefore, in a way that offers rare value to other people.
Yeah, and there's especially in the spiritual community where it's like someone goes to a weekend seminar and they're a nervous system expert, or someone goes to like one thing and they're, it's like the conversion rate of skill to service, and it's great. Again, I edged on the slower side of that because of I really was like, well, I need to be fully in integrity with what I can hold and like who I am and what I'm doing before I offer this. But there is something to, I've spent years learning the nervous system. I didn't just like read a book about your vagus nerve, and there is like, then when you start putting it all together, like, oh no, that does make a really big difference. And that's only through like learned life and practice and years of service that you can like get to that point. Not to say people that don't like do it super quick, there's amazing people that are doing that. But I think that there is some shaky integrity in that, in this world. Just because it hasn't been fully embodied,
So what do you think those people who are like focused on one area, but maybe hasn't gotten the real world reps, whether through their own experience or through service, what do you think they're being called to do now in the new paradigm that is very much that we're very much so gliding into?
I think especially 2025 was a big year of reconciling. A lot of people were taken into that space of like, and I think it was because a lot of bigger figures were getting exposed with their integrity and like a lot of kind of, scandalous things. And we're in a stage of collective shadow work. That's what's happening on the planet right now. And we're in the stage right now of illumination, which is like the first step of shadow work. And so those of us who are way showers or are here to be like leaders have to go through that first in order to like hold the space for the collective. And yeah, I think it was a really, really confronting year for a lot of people, in the best way, right? And shedding a lot of that stuff that was maybe built more off of ego or like thinking that it needed to look this way or thinking that I should be doing it this way. And, I know so many people who like took such a step back, like I did, like from their business and from being like out in the world. And again, partially, I think that was like divine protection for this group of people to be like, I'm not subscribing to the chaos that's happening right now. I'm going to go all the way inward. And for some people, I think that was a very conscious choice. And some people got like booted out of their reality that they were in so that they had to like do that work. And also when it comes to service, you're always meeting people at the exact level of consciousness. We talked a little bit about this yesterday that you're at. And so, again, there's nothing like wrong with any of it. And there's going to be a perfect mirroring and alchemy with any level of human that comes into your sphere because they're going to need exactly what you have in the exact state of embodiment that you have gotten yourself into in the exact state of consciousness that you're able to meet them at.
How do you reconcile that meticulous, like the step-by-step process that really is tying to the present moment and that we can access whatever we need within ourselves or within our divine team, within the other timelines, I suppose. I don't know what you'd call it, or like I guess I would call it the field. Like we can access whatever we might need from the field within the present moment, and that people will come to our lives, whether they're clients or just like friends, whatever. And there will be a perfect harmony in that, like what you have to give is what, and what you have the capacity to receive is what somebody else that you're exchanging with will also, be compatible with. But that's like such a step-by-step process when we're looking at, I guess, time. And like, if we have the vision of a goal that's, X amount of time down the line, how do you find patience within that process? Or is time just truly like a construct that we shouldn't even think about? Like, I don't know. What do you think about these concepts of like time and patience in pursuit of one's goals?
Yeah, linear time is not real, so that's the first.
I'm working on that.
Thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we need it, right? Because we have that construct for a reason. Although that construct is also breaking down right now, so when the planet, shifts in density and frequency, that has to shift linear time because it's just how those things are connected. And humans right now are also like shifting in density. We're getting like lighter. We're having actual like cellular genetic mutations that are happening along this process. And so we're not going to need to relate to that construct in the same way. It will happen gradually. It's not going to be like all of a sudden we're just, actually like teleporting through space and time, unfortunately. But so time to me is more like divine timing, which is not based on linear time constructs. It's based on frequency. So people say divine timing all the time, but they still kind of think about it in terms of time. And that's not really what divine timing is.
You're blowing my mind right now. Because divine time is alignment, essentially.
Right. And so time is just...
Oh my God. Okay, go on.
I mean, take it in. Take it in.
Like we hear people say, we talk about alignment, we talk about divine timing and other like extraneous things related to those things, but not that divine timing is alignment per se. That it's not even actually time, but we call it time because it's that in the moment of alignment, that's where a miracle can happen.
The way that I understand, and again, this is just me and like what I've channeled, like channeling extraterrestrials or God or whatever, like things that are outside of time, is like time, the construct of linear time is created based on the need to have experience. So, which is based on energy and frequency and alignment. And so your human needs to have a lived experience of something that can only be experienced through time in order to feel like ready or to learn the thing. So that like learning process, however long it takes you to like learn a lesson or to like go through whatever you're here to go through, that's how it's experienced in linear time. And so to collapse that, right, I guess to like work on the patience thing, kind of classic answer, but it's like truly the only moment you have is now. That's everything, every single thing is happening right now, which is our human mind. We can't even if you're super enlightened, it's very hard to really wrap your head around like the everything everywhere all at once truth. That is the reality. And so yeah, I guess it's just for me like, how do I do that? Just being fully in the now. And like if I want to be a certain embodiment or if I'm trying to get to like a certain goal, I guess it really is just, well, who is that? Like that version of me, what is she doing down to every sensation that I feel in my body? That's what embodiment is. It's like, okay, if I'm going into that space where I'm speaking on stage in front of thousands of people or whatever the thing is, how am I breathing? Like, how am I holding myself? What am I like? What does she do in this moment? How is she thinking? How open is she in her heart? Like you were saying, like, then you're there. You can't receive more of something that you are not. If you're not it, you can't experience it. And I think that's how you collapse time, right? Through intention and through knowing like, oh, I'm just it already. I know I'm it already. I just have to shift my perception to the one who knows that she is already it. And then I am there because it's already done. But it's only already done if I am fully in the somatic and conscious experience of it being done. And that's what it happens through linear time.
Essentially, what I heard is, or in relation to what I asked, is that patience it doesn't necessarily need to be part of the equation. And when you're being present and tapping into those versions of self that that you feel intuitively are there and like that is a part of your potential, then it does just boil down to the conscious act of embodying that state wherever you are, whenever you are. And that might not involve like even impatience in a way, because that's the ego. That's what it is. I think impatience is a byproduct of the ego, right? At least in part. And so it's like, oh, this isn't happening quickly enough, or like feeling othered from even like your own life experience or for what you feel like should be happening now. But if you can work with the ego in a way that it doesn't manifest as that, or you know how to like work with that impatience that can come from it, which is by being in the present moment and like understanding the bigger picture beyond the like narrow scope of the ego, then you can just focus on or have greater capacity to focus on the present moment and how you are embodying the person that you want to be. I feel like that's kind of ironic that it was the ego, because the ego itself is like very elusive. And I was like, wait, what is it? What is it? Oh, it's the ego.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. And English language is problematic, right? And so the idea of patience and impatience, and I talk about this like with my clients all the time, like one of the first things we do is like talk about words and like, here, I'm going to use these words. Like, because if I'm using words that mean something completely different to you, there's going to be like some type of clash there. And even with myself, I've thought about this so much, which is part of the reason, honestly, too, that I love light language so much, is because it's like sometimes I'm like, I don't even know how to say this in English, but I can say it in light language, and that feels way better. So, patience, in order to even think of like, what am I being patient for? And I know it's like the thing and the goal, but it implies that I'm waiting for something to occur that is making me have to be in a different state than just the state of being, which would be like the title of patience. And so, yeah, I think it's trust, right? Like we're really just, if you can surrender into the moment, it's like we're supposed to be enjoying the unfolding. Like, oh, can I just like know this is my intention? This is where I know I'm going. This is my highest path, my timeline, whatever it is. I see that embodied version of myself, and I know that's authentic, and I know that that's me. Maybe there's some ego in there. Ego's not bad. Ego's great for certain things, right? Of course, we need ego to like get shit done. But it's like, okay, but then I can let it go and know that God's got it figured out so much better than I'm going to figure it out. The how and the when is not my responsibility. And I know that if I'm choosing every day to like be in alignment with myself, it just does collapse everything else. And so patience feels like a distraction to me, because it's like, what? I don't need to even think about patience or impatience, but it's in the process of like working through feeling impatient that you get to the beingness of ease, I guess.
Interesting. Tell me about light language and your experience of it, like what it is, all of that.
Yeah. Do you have, is your light language online?
No, but I think I remember at PJ's art gallery opening, hearing it, it reminded me, like, I feel like I used to speak it when I was younger, potentially. It seemed familiar.
Most people do. I'll speak light language to babies. It's like kind of just like baby gibberish, you know, until we like forget that we're taught to like speak a different way. And you know, you remember it. It sounds so true because it's everyone's native language. It is like our native tongue. Before, when we really just spoke in sound and vibration and frequency, that is light language. So light language is just that sound and specific vibrations to bypass your thinking mind and to really access your cells and your DNA in the light codes that are in your body. Because that's where everything, all your ancient wisdom, all of your memories, like all of who and what I really am, is encoded in your human. And so that's why when you hear light language, you don't know exactly what it is. Like you can't really tell what someone's saying in English, but you're like, it's like a thought form. Like it's like a thought block that can hit the body, and you're like, oh, yeah. Or it spurs like a memory, or it spurs a certain sensation. Um, I really feel light language when I speak it is just like going into the body and just turning different things on and moving things out of the way and kind of just shifting and awakening. And I think one of the misunderstood things is that people think that you're channeling something when you're speaking light language a lot of times, or when they hear it. And that is part of it. That's like this, we'll put that in this category. But like when you just start speaking light language, it's just your light language. Like it is me, Lisa, remembering how to allow light language to move through me. Just like speaking Spanish or speaking another language. It's just your own light language. And then you can start to channel different beings, different entities. And that is like a different tone and cadence, that is that energy speaking through you. And they are really different. So, you know, extraterrestrials are a very different signature than like Isis, like working with energies like that, different than when I just like talk right to God, right? Like that's you can start to tell the more that you channel, like, oh, this is new. If I start speaking a language that's like a different dialect, I'll just be like, wait a second, who is this? Like, what? Who am I reaching right now? Um, and then your team, like your spirit team, your council, whatever it is, it'll be really familiar as you're just like talking to a friend, right? You start to like learn those sounds. But yeah, the light codes are, I mean, essentially what we all are. You are just like particles of light vibrating at a rate that looks like you. And so accessing that is, I think, a really important part of this journey. I think a lot of people are going to start speaking light language in the next like 5 years, because it's a return. It's a return to our truth, and that's what we're doing. My personal journey, I had no idea what light language was when I started speaking it. I really didn't have like super spiritual people around me when my channel opened. And I remember I used to start chanting. Like I would do like different chants, like from different lifetimes as like a monk, or like different languages. It would be a lot of like song and stuff that would come through. And then I started drawing it before I started like really speaking it. I would just like draw all these symbols, and I was like, I don't know what I'm doing right now. I would just be in meditation and like start doing like free form channeled writing. And then when I started speaking it, I was like really freaked out, honestly. I was like, well, I'm like 30. This is when a lot of people start to like have bipolar stuff come up, or like have like, I was like, maybe I'm just like totally losing my mind. And thank God, I think at that point I found Elizabeth April online. She was one of the first like people, and like kind of mentor in like the internet sphere. And I joined, I think, her like Discord group at the time or something. And she was like talking a lot more about light language. And I was like, oh, I'm not crazy.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, and a lot of people too, to bring back the religious stuff, speaking in tongues, right? That's a huge part of so many religions and like so many ancient teachings. And it's titles or whatever they are, but you're really just using sound and vibration and energy to allow yourself to not start navigating with the mind when you're working in the realm of the spirit, because you can't make sense of it in the mind, and you're not supposed to. So yeah, I love light language. I really like see it in people, so it's a big thing that I like see light codes, and when I'm doing sessions on people, and I love to create art in that way, and to just, yeah, I love to work with it. I think it's really, really fun.
I think, again, going back to that party at PJ's, after that night, that whole night was like, so it felt like an activation.
For sure.
I was like, is this normal? No, it was definitely an activation. And I was practicing light language, and I felt so relaxed while doing it. And yeah, but I like don't practice it. I don't know. Do you practice it? Does it just like come through you? Like it's kind of, I'm sure it's different for everyone, but I almost feel like my matter is still too dense or something like that. Or like my thinking mind is like still too active and like skeptical and like in the driver's seat when it comes to a lot of mystical things. That's why like I think there's actually a wave of this, of like people who are like practical and mystical. And I definitely feel that. And I think part of like my flavor of it so far has been like being very skeptical, but that's been just like really earthquaked, I would say, in the past couple of years, because so many crazy mystical things are happening where I'm like, this has to be like it's really pushing that skeptical side of me to be less skeptical and more trusting. And I feel like trust is such a big part of this new energy that's coming, that's here. And that's continuing to amplify, like you said, with more people going to be speaking light language. Who knows what else is going to be happening in the next year, 5 years, so on. And I guess I'm curious about your process in developing your own trust with light language, with tapping into other beings, like what has that actually looked like for you practically? Because you didn't come out of the womb believing in all of these things, and society tells you that these things don't exist, and yet we have these very real experiences. So,
Yeah. I'm gonna go back to your first question first about practicing. Because I do like a lot of the clients that I work with, that's something that they really want. And so I do like work to like help people awaken, their gifts, which kind of happens naturally like throughout a container anyways, because they're just getting a ton of activations. But like you're saying, a lot of it is trust. And so it's more about allowing than practicing. Um, and think about it this way. We're so suppressed, most people, with speaking your English voice. We're so suppressed with like even allowing ourselves to cry in public, or like the programming around suppression is so deep. And I always tell people like light language is not the goal, right? That's a thing that will happen when you start allowing your energy to move through your body. So the thing that we practice is first like, what am I feeling? What are my sensations? Like what's actually alive inside of me right now? And that also comes with a sound and a tone and like some way that that energy wants to be expressed through you. And so starting to like do sounding and screaming and grunting and like, moaning and all the different sounds, and then practicing with different toning of, you know, and like going through different sounding, that can also be really helpful. But yeah, starting to like, you have that thing in what you have probably felt when you've heard people speak light languages like that, like, ooh, like there's something happening in here. And if you stick with like that happening long enough, it's like, oh, what is that? Like, what is that doing through my body? And something wants to like come out. And so it's really just like allowing yourself. It was when you first start speaking it, it's like super like buzzing and like my light language didn't come out sounding as pristine as it sounds today. Yeah, that is like an evolution, just like when you learn to speak English, right? You don't come out speaking a perfect monologue when you're 4. It's like a development of learning. And so, yeah, it's really, I think the first step for anyone is like just getting into the body, like you said, like got to get out of my mind. Your mind is great, but it has to like take a back seat when we're in the like the awakening of your gifts. Yeah, because you can feel crazy real quick when you start to connect with these things. And that is something that I had to navigate for a while. And even today, sometimes I'm like, that, no, like if that's important, bring it back to me 5 times and then I'll pay attention to it for real, because clearing out the distortion, and I do that every day. Oh, gosh, I don't want to get too, I want to follow the questions. I'm going to go back to what you said about trusting the channel. And I had to laugh when you're like, you didn't come out remembering these things.
but yeah.
Because you actually do. And then you forget them really quickly, because you're kind of taught to forget. But from my experience, one of the funniest things that I just thought was normal when I was younger, I think I was in like 2nd grade, and I was always a good student. I was always like good at school. And someone asked me like, how are you so smart? Like, how do you know all these things? And I was like, well, the alien in my brain tells me. And they're like, tell me more about this.
Oh my God.
And I legitimately, when I was little, I like saw my 3rd eye space, which I didn't realize that's what I was seeing, and I saw it as a screen, and there was a little alien sitting in front of it, and I would ask the alien when I needed to remember something, like, can you find this for me? And he would find it for me and like put it up on my screen. And that was truly like how my memory worked in my childhood. And now I'm like, well, this is kind of how I access like the Akashic records and like how I see things. But yeah, I thought it was totally normal, because you do just think you're normal and I think that also that day was like, oh, this isn't normal. Like this isn't this isn't actually how people exist. Um, but like the trusting part, and this goes, I do think that probably most people who are on this journey, I'm sure you've had certain things, and I think anyone who channels, especially professionally, has probably had a couple moments that are like undeniably, this is something that it cannot be false unless I am totally insane. Okay, I know that I'm not insane. So I must just start trusting this thing because when I'm in this space, I feel like more like myself than I've ever felt before. My heart is super open. I feel really safe. And so I'm going to lean into that because I just know that that's true. One of the first things, like when my channel opened, it was pretty intense. I remember sitting outside. I was spiritual, I've been on the path for a while, but I wasn't like connected. And I remember sitting outside under a full moon and just being like, okay, any and all upgrades, I'm ready. Like, let's go. I'm really ready for this to start shifting. And that night, I got woken up with terrifying sleep paralysis, like really intensely. I don't know. Have you had sleep paralysis
That's
before?
where you can't move, but you're awake, right?
Yeah, you can't
I've
move
had
and
it
you
like
can't like
once.
speak.
Yeah.
It can be really
Is that
scary.
the one where you can see like some people say they can see a demon or something and then
Yeah, people call it like the hag. That's kind of like the creature that across all different, sectors is like the agreed upon kind of vibe. So it was like 3:30 in the morning, and that continued like every single day for like a month. To the point where like I wasn't sleeping at all. I went in for it was every single night, and I just like could not sleep. Was with my partner at the time, and he's just sleeping like a baby all the time next to me. And I'm like, aren't you're not feeling any of what's happening in the house right now? I'm all of a sudden like hearing voices, like seeing things, like all these things are going on. And to the point where I went into work because I was working in a sports chiropractic clinic with a couple other doctors, and I told my colleague, I was like, hey, I'm really sorry. Like, this is what's going on with me. I'm really cracked out. I'm really tired. Like, I'm fine to be here. And he was like not a spiritual person. He's like, don't tell anyone that I gave you this woman's recommendation. But I was seeing a ghost in my house, and one of my patients looked at me one day, and she was just like out of nowhere, like, you have a visitor that you really need to talk about, don't you? Like to him. And it like threw him for a loop, obviously. So he hooked me up with her, and then she came over and did a house blessing and like taught me how to do things. And she was like, Spirit's trying to work with you in a very specific way. You need to protect your channel because now your channel is blasted open. And so that was kind of the beginning of me like realizing. But what I was gonna say is like one of the moments that I had where it was like, oh, I can trust that this is real is the night after she left. I did still wake up with sleep paralysis, but I woke up and this was one of the few times that I actually saw something like materialized next to me, not just like seeing it with my third eye. And it was like a glowing green centaur, like like a beautiful creature. And he's just standing next to my bed, and I was like, hello, sir. And, but I felt super calm. I was so like finally I was like, well, this is really weird, but I feel fine. And he's like, my name is Igor. I'm one of your spirit guides, and like it's fine. You're safe. You can go to sleep. Like I've got this. And I was like, okay. And so after that moment, I was like, well, something cool is happening here. And then I saw a couple weeks later, I was practicing channeling and I was in my living room, and I saw like an extraterrestrial being like walking into my living room. And I immediately knew to ask, even though it was like a very different being. I was like, wait, are you Igor? And he was like, first of all, that's just like a name. Like, that's not really my name. We don't really have names, but you can call me Igor if you want to. And I was like, well, are you that same creature? And he was like, yes. And I was like, why do you look so different? And he was like, because we come to you in a way that your psyche can tolerate. And in that moment, had I appeared to you as like a 7 foot tall extraterrestrial, you would have been really scared. And for some reason, that image of me like was something that you could accept. And so he became like one of my first like spirit guides. And I think in those moments, to get back to your trust, it's like I couldn't unsee that. I knew that that was real. You know, I knew that that was like, for however real it would be to anybody else, that was something that was like very tangibly real in my reality.
It was like right there in front of you. Igor was
Yeah, just like, and
like a
so I was like,
being.
well,
Did Igor look like a movie prop character, or was it just like,
I mean, not in full thickness, right? So not like full density, still in like a light
oh,
being form.
like a projection almost?
Yes. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, and I've had a couple of those like early on in the early days, that they kind of collapse the timeline of like your trust journey. And I think that if you're really meant to be, especially like doing this work, God's just like, okay, well, we got to accelerate her path a little bit because she's having some resistance. So, like, here we go, you know? And to your point, too, I've always been very connected to magic, but I'm like, show me proof. Like, that's how I had been for most of my life. And even with this, I have like very high checks and balances with things. Um, so I think it's just you learn how to navigate like, well, this feels true to my soul. And you can also be really direct with spirit. Like once you start really communicating, whether it's your higher self, God, like anybody else, this is the information that I want right now, or like this is who I would like to speak to right now. I'm not interested in speaking to anybody else. Thank you all so much, my spirit team, for your presence and your love. I'm not interested right now. This is what I'm focused on. And like starting to like really execute your boundaries just as you would execute them in the 3D. And I think that that is where a lot of fear can creep in when people start opening to other realms, because they don't think that they have control and they don't think that they can like execute sovereign boundary space. And you can. And it takes a little bit of work and it takes really strong intention. But you can get really specific about that. I used to really test the information that I was getting. Like I would be like in really, really absurd ways. Like if this is real, show me this. If this is real, like touch my left leg and move it. If this, like, I didn't just accept what was happening with me at all. And one of the things that I would do, this was 6 years ago, 6 years ago, yeah, 6 or 7. I was on a run one day and I was just like receiving these downloads and kind of like, you know, when you first start channeling, it really feels like you're getting like blasted with energy because your system isn't used to like receiving higher frequencies at that rate. And so I received something and I was like, that's ridiculous. If that's true, take me to a 4-leaf clover right now. And my body abruptly stopped and turned left. Like my body just turned into a field and I closed my eyes and I put my hand out and I started walking for a while. And then I heard stop and I put my hand on the ground. I was like, you've got to be kidding me. And literally like right under my palm was a 4-leaf clover.
Holy crap.
And in that day, a lot of things changed for me, right? I was just like, oh, the stuff I'm hearing out here is mixed with the reality down here. And this 4-leaf clover is now in my hand. And it's only in my hand because I said, if you're real, prove it to me and take me to a 4-leaf clover. And I've done that little game a couple times since, and it works. It works if I'm not needing it too bad. And I think this is what I was going to get into with like where people get even like the time collapsing thing and the other stuff. It's like just like anything, you're going to repel something if you need it or if you're holding it separate from yourself. And sometimes that can even be like the proof that we're looking for. Is like, no, the whole thing about remembering who you are and connecting to like the creator within you is to just know And I'll give you some little hints. I'll give you some confirmations. I'll validate you because I know you need it to keep going. Like the synchronicities you were explaining, like, yeah, you have to have those experiences of like following your own Easter eggs in order to be excited enough to keep going on the journey, you know? But then I think people get to a certain point and you're like, well, I need something bigger. I need something bigger. I need something bigger. It's like, well, that's then you're almost regressing back into like the seeking and not believing. And so you just gotta like trust it. And yeah, it becomes, you know, I think also with the critical mind, it's like you hit a point even with that where you're like, well, it's actually harder at this point for me to not believe in this. Like it's taking so much more energy for me to be like, no, than to just be like, okay, okay, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Let me swim downstream with this and just like follow the excitement of the crazy mind-blowing random things that are being put into my reality. Like
Yeah.
PJ's party, right? That was just like bing, 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 bing. Like all of
Yeah.
these people that never met really before. We were all, I mean, I knew PJ and I think she was obviously the connecting thread,
Yeah.
but, and it was just like pure magic. And like, you can't plan that.
That
That's
was so
literally
special.
God being like,
All these
you.
priestesses. Like literally bringing together all these priestesses and then we're all activating each other. It's like, yeah.
Yeah, like you can't
So
plan
amazing.
that, you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Well,
I don't know.
I think that ties into surrender actually, right? Because even with the story you just described of the four-leaf clover, well, firstly, something that came up when you were saying that for me is that, like, for you, it sounds like your channel is just like blasted open, and some people's will be more gradual. Like, mine has been more gradual, I would say, like over 10 some years, and it's still freaking, I don't know, it's still in its process. But I wonder if there will be more spontaneous like openings with the upgrades that are already happening and will continue to happen. But there's something to be said, I think, in that very like descriptive story that you just shared of how you were surrendered to the impulses within your body that then guided you to the four-leaf clover. And that's a very like, again, specific like micro example of what surrender can look like in the moment. But you've also been embodying surrender in, it seems like, much more broad ways in terms of really like manifesting something from the other realms into form through your creations, through your business, through who you are. And I like we've been like I've been joking about this recently. I'm like, you actually are the queen of surrender. And it's surrendering is so counter to what I think we're taught in society, right? It's like, but we do surrender, but we surrender to the old paradigm or to cultural programming. Maybe we don't realize it, but that's what's actually happening. When there is an opportunity as well to surrender to the knowledge, like the knowledge and knowing of our soul and spirit to guide us to where we actually like will have our fullest expression. And so, I mean, I just want to hear your thoughts on surrender because again, you've seemed to navigate it in significant ways that I wonder is why you are such an open channel and able to even speak light language and do and connect with the beings that you do really on command, it seems like.
I mean, it's definitely been it's been a process for me in some ways, but also I think that I always had a really strong curiosity about the world and what was here for me. So I think like my in what now probably looks like surrender, and it was partially, a lot of that was driven by seeking for me, and I think there is a certain level of surrender that you have to have trust in the unknown to even take actions in seeking in the ways that I have. But I remember that again, I feel like I'm using like some points from childhood because I feel like it helps to like understand just like kind of the way that I've always been. you know, because a lot of my surrender that you're probably speaking to, like I have like moved a lot and I've like really started my life over quite a few times as an adult, by myself. And I remember being little and asking my mom, like, hey, mom, what's Egypt like? And she was like, I don't know. I've never been there. And I was like, I remember being like almost appalled at her answer, being just like, this is you've never been there? And she was like, no. And I was like, well, I literally said to my mom, I was like, well, just imagine this, mom. Like, say you're an alien and you come down to, like, you go to another planet and you ask one of the people on that planet, what's this place like? And they tell you, I don't know, I've never been there. Wouldn't you think that was really weird because it's their planet and they should have explored their planet? And like, and like I just remember that being like such an obvious, clear thing for me. And while that might not sound connected to surrender, I promise that it is, because it's like that was so ingrained in me from a child, just to be like, well, there's all these things to see. Like, how, what do you mean you don't know the answer to that, or you don't know what that looks like? Go find out. Like, and it was just, I think that like ping in me was in some ways like did turn into, you know, in my like late teens and 20s, like escaping. And I was, you know, you mentioned along like a while ago, like suppressed anger, like, you know, balancing out your, like I had a ton of suppressed anger. I was like not a super, you know, I was not an embodied creature until, you know, relatively recently. Um, and so I think that there was a certain level of, I just didn't have a fear that something like to a bad point. Like I was just like, it'll be fine. Like I always was just like, I don't know, we'll figure it out. Like, and that got me into some like dangerous situations, you know? Like I look back at like my teenage years and early 20s and I'm like, oh child, like you had some serious divine protection around you, because that was not a smart thing to do. Uh, but I feel like I kind of always had the like, well, I'm just gonna go and apologize later, like attitude. Um, which I guess translates into like being good at surrender, but it also is just like, I'm just here to like F around and find out, and so I'm gonna like go do that. And you know, I'm just a little woman. If I get in trouble, I didn't know any better. Um, and then when it, you know, evolves into more of like the focused, I think I've learned surrender and like detachment too, because I've just experienced a lot of like loss, and death. And I think that that just really, you don't have a choice. You know, you just are like, well, this is something that I cannot change. So I have to surrender to this person who I love so much being gone. And like, I have to accept like what is happening right now in me. And I have to surrender to like where that's now taking me, because there was a before that and there's an after that. And I have to just like surrender to the after that, you know? And I haven't really thought about it in terms of surrender before, but I do think that like loss has been a big part of that. Um, and then I feel like with the channeling stuff, it's like a whole different, it's like life surrender and then surrendering into, yeah, like bringing those energies through.
But they're probably related, right?
For sure. Yeah. You know, it's the physical body has to be like in a state of receiving and surrender. Um, but again, the curiosity, like I would meet too, even with what happened with my channel when it opened, was like, oh, I did, oopsie, like should have like checked myself a little bit before I was like opening portal, like like I just didn't know. And so some of it you learn in retrospect, but um yeah, I think it's trusting, like when you learn to start trusting like your, like I was saying before, like your intention and like your word, and like, no, if I'm a co-creator, I'm a fractal of God, my word is important, my choice matters, like what I'm intending is actually very powerful. And so if I actually believe that, then I'm just going to know it, and then I don't have to, that's the only control that I need. That's the only control that I have, is my intention and like my beingness. And so it's actually like way easier to surrender because you don't have to do all the other things that you're spending energy trying to do that you can't do anyways. And so it's like surrendering to your knowing, and then like divine aligned action is like the one thing at a time, you know. I feel like I got on a lot of different tangents there. I don't know.
Well, I think too, like surrender seems to be related to, the ego. Again, I don't know why I'm thinking about the ego so much today, but it's like the ego is the force that is saying that things have to go a certain way. And if they're not, then there's going to be tension in the body, in the emotional spirit, in the spirit, in the emotions, etc. And I remember like when I think I fully felt surrendered like for a blip of time. Actually, also last year, obviously initiation, for everyone. But I felt like so defeated by external events happening in quick succession that it was like I couldn't resist so many things at once that I just had to be like, "Ugh." And that's how it sort of like felt. It's just like, huh. But it's in that, like in the body and in the mind. And I had the space at the time to be like, okay, I'm not going to work for a week. I'm going to do an information fast for the week and like really allow myself to like soak in everything that's happening, which by the way wasn't like good per se. It was like difficult things, but, um, things that just happen in life that like are happening more often, it seems, in life, like they used to, and more quickly. And then in that, I felt what I've heard described as like, what is it? The black velvet womb of the feminine, I believe is what I've heard it called. And like that's really how it feels, like this soft, like I mean, it felt like what I imagine being in the womb is like this safe environment that's like very nourishing, that feels very cozy. And where worry doesn't necessarily have to be present or like there's no space for worry necessarily. Um and I think obviously people have talked so much about surrender in the spiritual world for so long, like what is it actually? And I don't know if I know the answer to that, but I guess I know what it's not. From like trying to surrender from the mind for so freaking long, but that's actually just like creating the tension that allows the ego to just like continue to push. And anyway, I'm just riffing
Yeah,
on
it's like
surrender. Yeah.
focusing on, like I use this analogy a lot. It's like it's such a fine line between surrendering and worrying about not surrendering. Like, and you can plug in whatever words you
Yeah,
want there,
seriously.
right? It's like I use the analogy of walking on a tightrope, right? So you're like walking on a tightrope, and you could either be focused on like I'm staying on the tightrope and I'm fine, or I'm worried about falling off. And it's the same action, and you'll get there, but it's a totally different energy and a totally different experience. And like you were saying too, I feel like, and as you were speaking, I was like, well, yeah, my first big surrender, it was like surrender because you get booted out of something and you have no choice. And that's even like not the death thing that I was speaking to, but and I think that's also what happened with a lot of people. That was one of the catalytic things about COVID, right? It was like, well, you can't do the other control mechanisms you were doing anymore, which is because that's a huge part of like the Great Awakening was like, here's this thing, deal with the situation that you're in without having your other exit plans that were your means of controlling your reality in like a false illusionary type of way, and surrender to this large what isness right now. And so many people had spiritual awakenings during that time, right? And a lot of, I'm not saying it was a good thing, but in the broader perspective, that's what something like that does. And it's like, yeah, for me, it's like the realizing that not like the net will appear, but like the net is you are the net, right? It's like you're just like that. And that goes into like trust with God and like really working with, I sent you like my Soma codes thing. The first gate is like the Divine Father. And I think especially for women, like coming into that level of trust in the divine masculine, the divine father, and like that aspect of God. There's also, like feminine God, but it's like that's what holds you, right? It's like the masculine structure, the divine structure of you're safe to be here and to be in the velvet womb in this space. And so there are so many layers to get through of past trauma or like what like so many things before we can start to develop that relationship, not with like the God out here, but the God in here. And like you're always being held. And once you allow yourself to like, oh, I can just lean back because I'm being supported. And then what happens? Like my heart is open. Then I'm postured to receive all this information and love from myself and other people. And so it is like that, like literal opening. Um, so yeah, thank you for that. I think that tied some things together nicely. But it looks so funny, there's so many different levels of surrender. And I think it also is like we've talked like the act of like of surrendering your old life or old self. So it's like the feeling of surrender, but then it's like to actually go through the surrendering of like I'm actually no longer choosing that reality. And sometimes that's like very parceled out. In my case, again, I had a very traumatic like experience of that. It was a choice. Um, like right before COVID hit was when I got like a message like if you want to get out of this life that you have right now, you have to do it soon because something's going to happen and you're going to be stuck essentially. And at that time I was living in Seattle, perfect on paper life, like sports chiropractor, really good partner, all these things. And I ended up kind of like blowing it all up and ended up in Peru doing a yoga teacher training the week before COVID hit. And so that like was a choice, right? Like I chose again, like it's like this, I think, where it gets like looking at someone and being like, oh, you're so good at surrender. It's like, well, yeah, thanks. And I made a decision to be like, no. And so some of that was done out of fear of like stuckness and like but also knowing that I was supposed to be doing those things. And then hopping on a flight, going to the jungle in Peru, and then not even realizing what I was surrendering into until the whole world shut down. And then you're quarantined in the jungle in Peru for a couple months, and then it turns into like a massive surrender. But I didn't know that, I didn't like know that that's what I was surrendering into. So it's like, well, thanks events making me look like I'm a little bit cooler than I am with like what I chose to surrender into. But really, it was just like a dump truck of like, oh, you made this one decision? Well, here you go. This is what it is now. And then you're like, okay, well, I have to surrender to this because there's legitimately nowhere I can go. There's nothing I can do. There's no other way out of here. So I guess I'll just go all the way in here.
Holy crap.
So I feel like, it's like, that's why I was like, I don't know where to start when you're like, how do you surrender the way that you do? Because I feel like I've just had moments that have just been like, yeah, conscious choice, but also absurd events in my life that have been like really just God being like, you're going to have to get really good at this. So we're going to give you the fast track. Okay. Like,
Well, that's a dance of life, isn't it?
right.
Yeah. Um, but also like the intensity of it. Like, because we'll all have our version of that. Because again, it's a dance of life. Dancing meaning like it's two partners. Oh, I guess you don't have to have a partner in dancing technically, but if we're thinking of like of polarity, like you have the two partners, and it does require like stepping into our creatorhood and taking aligned actions from our intuition. And but again, that also requires a blip of like, oh, let me listen to this voice that's telling me to do this thing. I don't think I knew that story, so that's kind of crazy. I'm like, that's
Oh, I thought you did for
kind
some
of crazy.
reason.
I knew
Yeah,
that
I
there
mean,
was
I
like
could do a whole
something like
podcast on
that.
that.
I knew that there was like something in that direction, but I didn't realize like the timing of it. So I'm just like, whoa, that's I can only imagine being. Did you end up like getting an Airbnb and just like being stuck down there? Like, what the heck?
I mean, I could talk about this for hours. I've actually started writing a book about it, but it's like it'll be done at some point in my life, I'm sure. Um, so I went for yoga teacher training. It was in Moyobamba, which is like the high jungle in Peru. It's like over an hour's day or a day's drive to Lima for like context. So for the first week, we were at like a nice hotel. It was like beautiful jungly hotel, and it was a lot of people there. After the training was supposed to be, I think, 2 weeks. After the first week, COVID hit and everything started shutting down. So like a lot of the Europeans like left. They gave people the option like you don't have to stay. So a small group of us stayed. We finished the training, and then after that, the hotel was like, we can't afford to have you here. Everything shut down because like they were legit quickly getting worried about because they were far away from a port and like getting food and getting resources and all these things. So yeah, we found an Airbnb, which was me and a girl from Finland, a girl from Sweden, a girl from Colorado, and like another girl from like New Orleans, I think. So yeah, it was five of us. And this Airbnb was an interesting little home on like a 300-acre plot of land that had like 12 other houses on it. This guy had this space that he got for like an ayahuasca center, and then he like lost the funding for it. And so it was like a really weird little house. We had solar power, which just meant basically after we had very little like light after it was daylight. No refrigerator, like no air conditioning. There were bats living in the ceiling. Like it was a whole thing.
Oh my gosh. And you
It
didn't
was a
sign up for
time.
that. You did not sign up for
No,
that.
it was a real time. Like, and everyone's in a state, right? You don't go as a single female to a yoga teacher training in Peru if you're not like working through something, you know? So, so like everybody was like in their own stuff.
Wow.
And yeah, my channel was recently opened, and so I was like, it was the first time actually. Before that, I wasn't really doing these. I was kind of doing my sessions that I do now, but we stayed at the hotel, I think, for a couple more weeks during like normal quarantine. And I was like, well, if anyone needs anything, like I put up a sign up sheet and I was like, this is what I do. Because I realized also with surrendering into like new self, I woke up one day and I was like, I really had a visceral realization of like, none of these people know me at all. I can be her. Like I can just be this woman who I've been trying to be. And I remember laying in bed and just being like, "Oh, I have no excuse anymore." Like I don't know if I'm ever even going to get back to to like I have no life to get back to. And that was another thing. I was like, of course I had friends in Seattle, but everyone was like missing their life and like feeling that sense of like control or longing or like certain things. And I was just like, I left my partner, I sold my car, I quit my job. I don't have a life to get back to anymore. And of course that was an experience, I have many videos of myself just like in tears and like, having a full experience. But yeah, we ended up staying in this place for like a month and a half, a little bit more. We had to get like an embassy ride out from Moyobamba to Lima, and then we took a government flight back to Miami into the States. I mean, it was a whole thing. I could tell you, girl, I could tell you so many stories about that time, but we can move on from it
Yeah,
from now.
okay, yeah.
But it was quite the event.
Yeah.
And
Oh
a
my
very
gosh.
different COVID experience than most people had.
Yeah, it sounds like it. COVID was, yeah, obviously it was interesting for many reasons, but when I hear it described in the context of spiritual awakenings, it's just something that there were so many different kinds of spiritual awakenings, I think, happening at that time. And it would be so interesting to like have have a lot of those stories and then like do some pattern recognition on it and like I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm just curious. Okay.
No, it would be cool. It's like the like there's like a picture book, like the big
Yeah.
books, like the end table books, be like a COVID awakening book.
I
It's actually a
mean,
great idea.
it is. It would help us recontextualize it. Yeah, and I think too what was interesting, I wonder like many people's kind of awakening catalyzing at that time is partially because of the construct of like our world was totally like flipped upside down, destroyed. And it then opened the capacity for understanding like the potential the potential, just potential in general of like of what is possible in this world.
Yeah, it was the first time that was like the first real system paradigm shift with like not going to work and like not having your third spaces, right? But like all of those things were just forcing people to look inward. And it was really a redirect towards which most people, and no judgment here, I would have probably done it too to a certain degree. Like you go through like the Netflix binging and the binge drinking and like doing all the like fun COVID things when it's like fun, snow day vibes. And then people were just like, oh, okay, it's just me and me here. And I'm being confronted with some things
I know.
now.
So crazy. Okay. Actually, I have one more question, then we'll go into closing.
Okay.
Okay. So I was looking at your website and I saw this statement. It says, you know, your intuition is there, you know, God is there, but you're ready for a deeper, more consistent relationship with it. And what stood out to me of that is that you referenced God as it. And I was like, okay, I want to ask you about that. What is God to you? Especially, you talk about the masculine, feminine, all of these things. And I'm just curious, like, is God an it to you? How would you describe it?
I think I was probably also speaking to like your intuition as it. But yeah, God is everything everywhere. Um, so the masculine God, like God the Father, and I've worked with like the feminine essence of God a lot. And God is in trees and this table and like the essence of God is just like creation. If you want to really boil it down, it's like the energy of creation that has created all things. And so it is in all things. And I do think that it can be an it. Because God doesn't care.
Yeah.
God's like if
You slash.
you're right. It's like him, her, hey you. Yes, country. God's just like, yeah, I don't care. And I think it's more of like the energy of the communication rather than, a title. But, you are God. I am God. We are fractals of God just in this human form. And I think that that's really hard for people to maybe understand. And there's different levels of understanding it. I mean, it's quite the closing question to bring up God now, because that is obviously like a huge part of just all of the things. And what I do is just, yeah, long story short, like connecting people to the God in them and the God in everything. Yeah, just that energy of like you are the creator of your reality, and that is also God, but you're also like the actual like energy of creation. Like you are the current and God is like the current. And so it's like to go one step deeper than like just being a maestro in the creation. It's like, no, it's actually the whole current of like the breathing essence that is everything. We can
There's
get
so
very
much.
specific. There's a lot.
There's
Maybe
so
that's
much.
like
That-
part two.
Yeah. That could be a whole.
Yeah, and that's like you said, the whole spectrum. And people, there's again so many different opinions, and a lot of this gets wrapped up with religion and worship and all of the things. But It's like all of the lightness, all of the darkness. That's all God, right? It's all the energy that creates all things. And yeah, that divine father energy and that protection and that knowing. And yeah, I mean, it's all God.
Yeah. Love it. I don't know. I feel more connected to the field of consciousness lately, and then it's been kind of like shaking up my perception of God. Not that, I mean, not shaking up my perception of God, but just like what God is. And I hear everything you're saying, and I feel what you're saying of what God is, and to me, I guess it's maybe just my mind like plugging it into like this construct of the map of or the field of consciousness. But I really do feel like I can connect to the field, and so I'm just like, oh, if this is the field and this is all of like what all is possible and could be, or everything comes from, then isn't that God? Like, so I don't know.
Yeah. No, I'm curious about what doesn't, yeah. I mean, to me, that translates perfectly. Like I always speak about being in the field as well. And I do think that it's the quantum field, the field of allness, whatever. But God is like, I guess, like you were kind of saying, like that the seed of the spark of the initiation of the field.
The seed of the spark. Yeah. Well, it's kind of like what you were saying. It's like that the energetic current that actually makes manifest from the field. It's like that process, that like that force of aliveness. I wonder. I don't know. I've had that in the back of my head recently.
I mean, yeah, it's a great, one of those things. And it's like, yeah, to the field, and then also the energy that holds the field, right? Like
Oh.
God is both of those things.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true. That's true.
And so it's like, yeah, where this comes from,
That's true.
and also the energy that's like create,
Mind bending. Truly
this way and
mind-bending.
this way.
Yeah.
It is mind bending. Yeah.
It's honestly a miracle that our brains can even conceive of these things. If you think about it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay, closing questions. Ready?
Yeah.
Okay.
I feel like pressure. I'm like, okay, hot seat. Even
There-
though we've been doing this for an hour and a half.
Yeah. Okay, let's start with what's the essence that you feel you bring into the world?
Oh, I mean, I would love to just say love because that is the essence that I think I have worked the most to love myself in the way that I love myself now, and to be able to, is in as big of a way as possible, not be judging myself or other people. I used to have a lot of judgment. And so I would say, yeah, like the receiving and being in the frequency of love is what I would hope that I'm bringing out into the world.
Yeah. Love it. Okay. What's something that you didn't expect about stepping into your gifts?
I mean, aside from everything else that we just talked about, which was a lot of unexpected things, I was having a moment just this morning thinking about all the things I had to do today. And even though I had faith in me and who I was, because it's been such a constant, like, oh, here's this opening, let me try to do something with it, let me do something with that, let me do something with that. Even me, like 2 years ago, I was like, I have to like make an art piece for a client. That's her soul signature, and then having this podcast with you and doing other things that I have going on that are of a very metaphysical nature. And I was just like, I always do so much inner child work, but I have just been recently really reconnecting with like my 6-year-old self. I found a little picture of me since I was at my parents' house. And I was just talking to her today, being like, it gets so good. Like you don't, I know that you like, you believe, oh my God, it's gonna make me emotional. Like, I know that you like believe in magic and like, but you're gonna go through a long period of time where you're not gonna think that that's something that is gonna like, you're not going to be able to make a living on that. Like that, really? You're going to like talk to beings and draw people's like soul signature and people are going to pay you for that? Okay, you know, and I was really having a moment of just being like, even a couple years ago, I couldn't even imagine like getting to do what I do right now and have it be actually something that is just what I do. And so I guess it's like, and I'm still stepping into that, you know, being totally honest. It's like, especially last year, I was talking to you, like stepping out of like a in-person treatment space, full-time situation and letting myself open up to things. It's like really just, you know, what's unexpected is like what's possible. Like show me how good it can get. Speaking of God, like show off God. I'm ready. I put in a lot of work. And now like let's go with the miracles. And so, yeah, I think that would be what I wouldn't have expected. And I hope when you ask me next year, it's going to be something even cooler, you know?
Oh, I love it. That's amazing. Ah, beautiful. Okay, last one. What makes your soul feel rich?
What a great closing question for your podcast. Oh, I feel like so many things, but I would have to say creating. And this is, I think, the most consistent and free creation that I have like been in this like past probably even like last 6 months, because up until recently it was like under the title I'm really good at creating under that, or like for creating for this purpose or for this thing. And it wasn't until recently that I was just like, no, you just create because you get to just do whatever you want to do. And that's like really how it can work. And yeah, the sense of aliveness and like richness that you feel, or that I feel at least, when I'm just in that flow, and not restricting and not judging myself and not like filtering out like who's gonna like this or what's it gonna be, and just doing it, you know, to go back to God and to go back to the essence of creation. Like, what does creation want to do? It wants to create. And it wants to create all the things. And so, yeah, that makes me feel very rich. And then also, you know, being actually financially rich. Like, money makes my soul feel rich too. We love that. We love abundance. So, like, literally, my soul is like, yes, please.
Yeah. That hits.
So,
yeah.
what did you, can I ask, like, where that name came from?
Rich souls?
Yeah.
From the ethers.
Yeah. Like, could you just have a download of, like, ooh, yeah, that.
Yeah. I don't even remember the moment. It just kind of landed and stuck.
Yeah, it's a great title.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think it does bridge like the mystical and the practical. It is like, it is about like what, I mean, I'm actually like turning the name and even this concept of like what, like, how does a soul feel rich? Because a soul is like inherently rich, isn't it?
Right.
But it's the embodiment in the physical form of a rich soul that is like actually a process, and I think something worth turning over in our heads and in our discourse. So anyway, yeah, I wish I remembered where when it came in or where it came from. But
does anyone ever ask you back? Since we're changing the format, what makes your soul feel rich?
No, and you know what? I've been feeling so silly because I don't think I've answered those questions. Like even like the ones about essence, which is also like a big theme, but I think what makes my soul feel rich is exploring my potential, and in the small and in the large ways, and also doing that from faith, which my skeptical part really has, again, trouble with. But when I lean into my faith and believe in magic, I feel like myself and connected to myself, capital S, and my soul. So yeah, that's so funny you asked me that. I've never even thought of my answer, but there it is. Thank you.
Perfect answer. I love it.
Thank you.
Yeah, like your soul, your human is just your soul's, way to
Vehicle.
experience.
Yeah.
Yeah, just your vessel for this life. Because our soul is really just like, I've got it all. I'm cool. I'm chilling. But
Yeah.
it's going to be really fun to experience that in the human. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Yeah. Anyway. Okay. Well,
Anyway.
thank you so much for being on.
You're
This was so fun.
welcome. Really fun.
And I think that's everything. So to all the listeners, I'll see you in the next one.